This is The Evil Conservative for Saturday, November 7th, 2009. We're at the end of the week of maybe the biggest electoral victories that Republicans have had in 5 years. And I think the question really is what is Obama's tipping point? Kim Strassel in the Wall Street Journal had an interesting article yesterday, and she talks about how Obama's tipping point was basically when Obama showed any sort of weakness or strain in his popularity to the blue dog Democrats and the more conservative and independent minded people that are in the Democratic caucus. And if there was any waning of Obama's popularity in their districts, then they wouldn't go along with the political agenda that Obama had that, most of America never agreed with. That's always been the strange thing about Obama, especially to conservatives, is how he can maintain such a high popularity personally, yet policy wise, he's always had political beliefs that have tracked much, much lower, as much as 10 or 15 points lower than his popularity levels. And it really was only a matter of time before his political beliefs would align with the popularity of him personally. And it looks like we're finally beginning to see that. And of course, Kim Strassel in the Wall Street Journal points out that of course was this Tuesday when Republican governors won in New Jersey and especially in Virginia by a landslide. Virginia, of course, being a state that went from red to blue in 2004 to 2008 when Obama won it by about 7 points. The question is, what really is Obama's tipping point? I think it happened a little bit sooner than that. But let's first discuss where Obama is going from here on out because there's a lot of bad news. The thing about tipping points is they start gaining, once you get past the tipping point, the momentum just starts to become inevitable and you either keep going further and further down the hill or you start, rocketing further and further skyward at a much, much faster pace. And what's coming for Obama is much worse economic news. We already got the news this week that the unemployment numbers passed that psychological 10%. It's at 10.2% right now, and it looks like it's slowly rising, even though we just got word that the recession technically is over because the third quarter of 2009, the GDP increased by about 3.5%. But not only is he going to have higher and higher unemployment numbers, my prediction is I think the Dow is actually going to fall down back again below 9,000, maybe even as low as 8,500 or less. And I think when that's going to happen is even into next year when we see a really, really bad retail Christmas. I think that retail sales in Christmas are going to be, for the Christmas season, are going to be very, very bad. And come the end of January, there's going to be a lot of reports about how this is one of the weakest retail Christmas seasons that they've seen in a long time. Because, you look at all this economic news, whether the markets are going up or unemployment up or down or anything, really there's no big gauge to find out whether people, either have money or not and if they're willing to spend it or not on something like Christmas. Christmas is just an obligation for the Christmas season, I should say, for people that celebrate other holidays around that time. People really just feel an obligation to spend money on their friends and family, and we'll see whether or not that they have the ability to do so come January, which is, believe it or not, only 3 short months away. So he's got bad economic news. What else has he got coming up? He's got two major policy decisions that he has to make. One, he's completely responsible for. The other, he has foolishly let go to Congress, which I'll get to in a second. The first decision that Obama actually has to make is he's got to make a decision on Afghanistan, and he's in a rock and a hard place with this one, really, because he's either going to increase the troop presence per General McChrystal's wishes, or he's going to have to start paring down the troop levels and really start thinking about an exit strategy in that country that we've been fighting a war in for over 8 years at this point. And there's been it's kind of hard to always tell with wars. Everybody just runs their mouths on that Iraq was built on lies, and Afghanistan, we took our eye off the ball in Afghanistan, and we really don't know what's going on the ground all that much because just the press reports are just so biased one way or the other. And it looks like that morale is decreasing. For one thing we know is it looks like morale is decreasing, but that kind of makes sense given that we've had the highest casualty rate in the last few months in Afghanistan than we've ever had before. And it really makes you wonder, are they is the Afghani opposition, are they emboldened? Are we engaging them more than we used to? It just seems so strange that we're suffering much higher casualties when you figure that the most intense period of that war would have been about 8 years ago this time when we first went in there. So Obama either has to increase the troop level, which will really upset his base on the left wing. There's many anti-war people on the left, and he actually campaigned. The reason he even won the nomination is because he was against the Iraq War from the beginning. So it'd be sort of hypocritical for him to all of a sudden increase troop levels by as much as 40,000. People are saying it's going to be maybe closer to 20 or 25. But again, we don't know, and it's time for him to make a decision, and it doesn't look like he's going to make one for another month or so. And it's probably going to start bearing on his ratings if he doesn't take decisive action soon. And then the one place he really can't go, but even conservatives like George will, and of course people in his base want him to go, is to actually pare down the war and to start withdrawing our troops. And unless he can make a really clear argument that the threat is no longer coming from Afghanistan, if he can make the argument that we've been there long enough, that this is the safest thing to do, he doesn't want to put soldiers in harm's way. I mean, he needs to be absolutely at his best. The way he was in the beginning of the primary season against Hillary Clinton. He needs to give one of the best speeches he's ever given, and the luster's probably off him too much at this point for him to give any speech like that as to why we're withdrawing from Afghanistan. So he's going to ramp up troop level in Afghanistan, and I really feel for these guys because I don't know what's the right thing to do at this point if we're in a war for 8 years in a place like that. But I know some of these guys are going to be going on their fifth, sixth, maybe even seventh or eighth tours, and they've just got to be fatigued. They're not seeing their families anymore. But if that's the right thing to do, we have no other choice but to ramp up our troop level. So we'll have to see what Obama does if he ever makes a decision anytime soon, which he needs to.